Seasons for Diablo 4 are what make the game what it is. Currently, we're playing an iteration of the game that is a pre-season. It just launched. I'm actually kind of surprised that no game's ever launched with the season active. Yes, I understand there are leaderboards, but they could have just disabled it, which I'm pretty sure they're going to do anyways, just to see the flow of things. But it was their decision not to do that. I don't think it's talked about enough, but it is what it is. So, we're going to talk about the one thing that, again, not enough people are talking about, and there's lots of silent speculation about this, and it's pretty huge. So we're gonna go over some details. I will cover what a season is if you are new to the Diablo franchise. I'm pretty new. I only played 1 or 2 seasons of Diablo 3, so it's interesting if you don't know about it. If it's explained poorly, you might think, why am I even playing this game? So I'm gonna do my best to give you guys all the information you need to know. What up, team? It is MurderInc here, talking about Diablo 4 seasons, with season 1 kind of around the corner here. There's one thing, and I guess I'll start with what are seasons. So this game, what it basically does is it releases a new iteration of the game. Not a new game, that would be insane. The game would cost $1,000 if they did that, but a new iteration of the game. Now this may sound really boring. Like, what do you mean? You're telling me all the progress I do right now, that we're all having fun? Well, I mean, most of us are having fun. Playing currently just disappears, so it goes to a standard version. This is all typical across all of these seasonal games that are out right now. So you might be thinking, what's the fun in that? So what they do is they usually add some pretty game-changing mechanic that makes doing this all over again way better than it sounds, because it sounds pretty bad. Who wants to do all of this over again? Raise of hands. Nobody does. But Diablo and every other single game, Path of Exile you can think of, I'm missing a ton of course, but they always do a great job with that. Well, most of them do a great job with adding new features each time a season's launched that makes it so much more fun each time you go through it. It can get monotonous if you do it for 5 years, 3 years, 4 years, maybe even a year, or even a couple seasons, depending on the type of player you are. But in my personal opinion, the base game of Diablo 4 is very good. The fact that there's lacking endgame is pretty common, and again, not sure why no one's really talking about this. This is nothing new. This happens with pretty much every single new ARPG, MMO, whatever you want to call it, when they release a seasonal game without a season to start. If you think back to, I hate comparing games because it's just easier to relate to the audience, but it's really a bad thing to do. But TLDR, this game is not the intended good version of the game, and it's still pretty damn good. You gotta admit here. So, like I said, they usually add some type of game-changing mechanic. I don't want to relate too much to other games because we could be pleasantly shocked as to what Diablo does. But the main point of this video is, knowing the Diablo franchise, there's one thing, especially in Diablo 3, that players loved. And I would be shocked, I think many thousands of people, if not millions, that are playing this game would be shocked if we do not see that in either season 1, fairly early, season 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm hoping it's season 1. So let me talk about this and let me show you why this is such a big deal. So I'm talking about something called a cube. Now, as soon as you hear cube and you've played Diablo 3, you're going to be like, yes, I've thought about that. I know what you're talking about. That would be insane. You're right. If you don't know what a cube is, let me break it down to you. So basically, a cube is very similar to aspects. However, if you know anything, you know that aspects are limited to legendary drops only. Why is a cube different, special than everything else? Because now you can take aspects from sacreds, which have terrible rolls on them, and you can put them on gear as legendary aspects. This would make builds so much better, and maybe they add this as part of a season, or maybe they just add it to the base game overall. But I know a lot of people that have played Diablo 3, the first thing they were thinking when season 1 was coming is, are they going to add a cube with its success? So how in fact would this work? We can see the map here. So basically in every single city, they would be some type of vendor icon, similar to the occultist, the purveyor of curiosities, and you would walk up to it. There would be a requirement. You would need, I don't know, Forgotten Souls. Maybe they add some new league mechanic, a new boss that's going to drop some type of currency that you have to use the cube. Then you would take any piece of gear you have, whether it has an aspect on it or it doesn't have an aspect on it, you'd put it inside of the cube. Then you would take one of your uniques, not legendaries, uniques, put that in the cube as well, and you would get either some form of aspect like this that has a special icon that says you just took away the unique part of this weapon here, and now you can add it to any other weapon, which would be game changing for builds. I mean, I'm hovering over Overkill right now. Death Blow is really cool, but you lose way too many stats with this. I mean, I don't have to go over this. I already have a video going over all of the uniques for Barbarian specifically. You can look at this from any single class, look at your uniques and say, how cool would it be if I could take this unique's ability and put it on my best in slot rolled main hand? That would be a pretty significant spike, and it could totally change a lot of builds here, because some slots are very important. And who's to say that if I take this chest piece, I remove the lucky hit chance here, that I have to put it on a chest piece? Maybe it's going to work similar to Helm, Chest, Pants, Amulet, which would be a brilliant move by Blizzard. So of course this is speculation, but it's a little bit further than that, because this is a Diablo game, and like I said, the cube has been an integral part of the success of past Diablo iterations for seasons. So this isn't really a shot in the dark to say we might be getting a cube sooner than later. And so I'm curious right off the bat, for Barbarian specifically, being able to take the Magnum Opus ability and put it on something else would be kind of crazy. That's an amazing multiplier. So the similar thing would be for, I mean, like I said, any other class you can think of, like Black River for Necromancers. I can kind of go to my, let's leave game here, and you can see my character list. I have, first of all, I love the way my Necromancer looks. Maybe it's just me, but it's definitely my favorite alt that I have, and I look forward to doing some content on that for sure. I'm not playing Bone Spear because I know how good it is and how kind of like busted it is, and I'm not attracted to those builds that are just clearly way too busted and will probably be tuned down. Have a Druid, have a Mate or Sorceress. The Rogue's not doing too well. The Rogue's okay. But thinking about all of these classes here, being able to take, like, I mean, you can just go through your class. You probably know your class decently well by now. Go through your uniques, look at some of the amazing effects, then look at how bad the stats are and think, what if I could take this and put it on a separate piece? Now, one of the things that I consider that they could also do for a seasonal affix, and what do I mean by seasonal affix as opposed to just adding a cube? So again, let me go back to Diablo 3 because it's just the easiest thing to compare to. I guess you can say Diablo 2 is a better maybe not a better, I don't know. I'll leave it to you guys in the comments. Do you think D2 or D3 is the better comparison for D4? D2 was recently remastered, which was nice. And I kind of think they did that because they weren't going to make D4 as much like D2 as players were hoping. So they said, you know what, we're going to give you guys something. I think that was a very, very smart move by the people, whoever was in charge of the Diablo sector, or if it was just Blizzard. We don't really like to give credit to Activision Blizzard too much because they mess up quite often. The difference between adding a cube all of the time and then adding a seasonal affix can be a lot of things. The first thing can be, a seasonal affix is usually extremely powerful. So some people might be saying, well, the cube, while it is good, it's not that strong. Now, I would probably disagree with that, but I kind of get where you're coming from. So one thing they could do for a seasonal affix, if they add the cube to the game as a baseline, which I think it's a good educated guess that there are going to be many baseline things added to this game over time, and we are not seeing the full base game right now. I think that's a pretty reasonable take. You can let me know what you think on that one. So one thing that they could do is the cube will now give you a second aspect slot on whatever piece you decide to put it on. Again, Blizzard does pretty damn well with seasons. They've had some very cool things in the past. Like one thing they had in Diablo 3 is use an item to enhance any piece of gear you want. And what it'll do is it'll bring it to the max item power. It'll max roll every single slot you have for the substats. Crazy, right? Crazy. So my vulnerable damage would go to 70.5, crit damage would go to 63%. That would be part of the seasonal theme for whatever season they decide to add that to. There are a lot of cool things like that that we can look forward to seeing, which is why it's not that bad going through the game again, because small changes like this can have a huge effect. Barbarian, while it may be miserable for leveling, they could add an awesome seasonal affix that starts applying fairly early on into the game that will make the leveling process so much more manageable for classes like Druids, Barbarians that tend to struggle a bit more than the others. So going on to the specifics of a seasonal affix theme compared to just adding the cube, that would be the equivalent of adding this specific death blow effect on this ancestral unique to the weapon, to where it doesn't imprint over retribution that I have on the bottom here with increased stun damage. It adds it on top of it, so we have two. Again, there are so many cool things this company can do, and I know there's a lot of doomers. What is a doomer? Someone's just like, everything's gloomy and bad and it's going to be terrible. I personally tend not to think that way. I like to think positive and say this game can have a lot of potential, so let's make it happen and let's just think that way. And if we get disappointed, we get disappointed. But I would say personally, this is just my opinion, with the success of the previous Diablo games, I think they have a pretty good gauge on how to make seasons incredibly fun in this game. And with adding more endgame content, more uniques to the pool, there's going to be even more build diversity here. While our skills are, I'm not going to say limited, it's pretty early into the game here, but there are kind of very few options here. I know a lot of people don't like the fact that you have to take some type of basic attack here. And just kind of spitballing an idea, one thing they could do for a seasonal theme is everyone now gets, after a progression system, 10 extra skill points. Just 10 extra skill points. Do what you want with them. And you can now lock in the first section of basic ability. You can click this right here once you've made it and unlocked the 10 extra skill points, and you can deselect these 2 points that are going to be useless to you for your build. And if you want to, you can deselect a core skill from your build. That way you can beef up this entire section here. All of this that we can see. There are just so many cool ideas that they can do for seasons. It's hard to speculate on this front. These are just kind of me spitballing ideas right now. But the cube, that's something that's been in the game and loved by Diablo players for such a long time. So to think that's out of the question and not likely to happen, we shall see. I believe, I mean, I could be wrong on this, don't quote me, but I believe seasons are going to be July. Like mid to end July is sounding and ringing a bell. Don't have anything to pull up in front of me right now, so I don't know for sure here, but we have time to continue testing builds to figure out what the best versions of each build are, leveling, how that's going to go. I'm definitely, once I'm done testing builds for the Barbarian, moving on to other classes, I'm going to see what the best leveling builds are, because I still don't think Barbarian has a good leveling build, and I'm kind of looking forward to starting again, because I've been 100 for like well over a week now, and while it's fun testing builds and making it for you guys, I kind of want to expand, you know? Expand, go back to the roots, see the leveling process again, because when I first started, I just steamrolled past everything, didn't really take it in to enjoy it, because I know I enjoyed the end game. That's a whole separate topic, but the end game a lot. So that's going to conclude this video. Give me your ideas for season. I'm really curious about this, because audience members always have amazing speculation on what could be fantastic for seasons. They really do. I've noticed this across the many games I've played, the comment sections. There's always really smart people that said, how cool would this be? And I read it and I'm like, Blizzard, hire these people. Incredible ideas. So whether you're basing this off of playing Diablo 3, even Path of Exile, which is another very popular game in this similar genre here, I'm curious about your feedback for sure. So slap that comment below. I look forward to reading it. That's going to conclude this video. So as always, if you enjoyed this content, smash the like button, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and I will see you all in the next upload.